within, a traditional framework. So it's nice.
Yeah.
We have a question that's been retweeted quite a bit already. It's by @KellyDrover, and I'm interested in in both your worlds how you can answer this. So it's, what are some ways non-industry people can get involved in the death positive movement?
In the what?
In the death positive movement.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool. That's a great question. Death positive came from sex positive. And the sex positive community is huge. There are people who are doing it professionally, who are sexologists or sex therapists, and there are people who are just enthusiasts, general enthusiasts. And the way that a movement grows is by a large base of enthusiasts. So you don't have to, there's a lot of young, especially young women now, which is wonderful, saying, I want to enter the funeral industry, whether it be the traditional funeral industry or the alternative funeral industry. And that's wonderful. You should do that if you have a real passion for it. But you don't have to do that to be involved. You just have to be an advocate. You have to start your own web series. You have to, talk about it to your parents and your friends and your loved ones whenever you can. You have to share information on your Twitter and on your Facebook and on your Instagram. You just have to be self-identify as part of the movement and spread the gospel when you can. And that's really happening, and it's really exciting to see.
Yeah, I think one of the big things too is we live in an age where we have the internet, so like Caitlin was saying, I mean, if you want to go to school, or because every state is different for the requirements that you need to be a funeral director or a licensed funeral director mortician. So whether you actually want to take that road to get a license and to practice, within the state that you're in, or if you just want to, I just started a blog one day because, hey, I wanted to start a blog to let out my feelings and emotions. No, but really, I mean, you don't have to necessarily be in a funeral home or in a cemetery or in a crematory in order to talk about these things. Once again, it's something that everybody's going to experience. So whether you want to start a YouTube channel, a blog site, a Facebook page, anything like that, I think anybody can start and anybody can get the conversation going. So
yeah, I mean, look at us. Anybody can start.
And it's something, I think that's really great is even just talking with your friends about it, because this is something that, when my friends find out what I'm doing, and they're always like, oh, really? And then, it's like this curiosity, but also that's where you really see how people are a little uncomfortable. But then once you start talking to people about it, I had a whole conversation with two of my girlfriends the other day just about like different ways that you could be buried, and it was a super interesting conversation that I don't think we would have ever had before. So it's even just like, bring it up at your next coffee meeting or whatever.
That happens all the time.
The one thing we always talk about is what, death and politics and
sex and religion.
But that's kind of all we talk about now.
The first time that I meet people, anytime I meet somebody new personally, I never tell anybody what I do right off the bat. I was at a fish fry last Friday with my parents and my aunt and my uncle, and this gentleman sat next to me, and he knew my uncle, so they started talking. And he turns to me and he goes, now who are you? And I kind of explained how I was related, and all of a sudden my father goes, she's a funeral director, And I go, oh geez, here it comes, because people have this idea of what you are supposed to be, I suppose, when you say that you work in the death care industry. And I think that once they kind of start talking to me, I'm normal. I'm a normal person just like everyone else. If I'm walking down the street, no one would ever guess that I was a funeral director, just because I don't look like a funeral director. So I think that, especially for me, the way that I look and the way that I present myself, it can kind of get the conversation going, because people don't expect it. And even though people don't expect it, when I tell them what I do, they feel comfortable talking to me about it, because I look like anybody else that they would, like one of their girlfriends or one of their friends. I'm not some scary person who looks like I should work in a funeral home. So I really think that kind of helps, if you don't necessarily follow a certain path of what you should look like or what you should be working in the funeral industry.
Yeah, and again, I try and present as scary and evil as possible. But yeah, and we are trying to start the conversation and trying to, and this is kind of, when I say this, it sounds a little cynical, and it's really not, but we are trying to make it cool in a way. We want, when you're thinking about movement building, you're thinking about what makes people want to be a part of a movement. And for most, it's an internal drive towards understanding death and understanding our place in the world and our place as mortals. And then for other people, it's aesthetics. It's, you know, skeletons from the 16th and 15th century. It's bone cathedrals. It's just a sense of aesthetic. So you have to think about all of those different things when you're thinking about how to present a movement and how to create it, because we want because it's not a movement with no stakes. You know, it's a movement with really high stakes. We have a really broken relationship with mortality, and it causes a lot of pain and a lot of suffering for families and for dying people. So whatever we have to do to get out there and to be advocates, I really encourage you all to do it.
Great, those are great answers.
Yeah, awesome. Everyone get involved.
Yeah. We've already been talking